Get that out of the way. Okay. Let's just wait for some people to join us, and then we'll start. What today is? What? I don't even know what day it is. Is it Thursday?
12th.
Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah, because tomorrow's the 13th.
Okay. That's right. Friday the 13th. Holy crap. I forgot about that. Maybe that's why this crap is doing what it's doing.
Maybe.
Anyway, good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know us, we are New Jersey Paranormal. I'm John. This is Chris next to me. As promised, our guest tonight, Erica, I don't want to butcher your last name. How do you say your last name?
Auberry.
Say Auberry. That looked too easy, Auberry. It was I was like, oh, Beery.
It's always butchered. It's fine. Yeah. It's really pretty simple.
So if those of you who don't know, and I've been talking about this for a while now, Erica and her son, Atlas, who will make an appearance later because we are all his fans, and he's waiting for his fans to say hello. They were featured on Surviving Death on Netflix. I think it was the 6th episode about reincarnation, which, and I'm going to break this down real quick and we're going to get into this. I do have an open mind when it comes to the paranormal, being in this field for a very long time. Reincarnation, past lives, you and I talked about this when we talked on the phone. That's one of the ones that's really been tough for me to wrap my brain around, as being like, I think about it and I think, what is the purpose for it? Why would that happen? You know what I mean? So that's why when I watched the show and I saw all the different stories and your stories included, I literally watched your story like with my mouth like, wait a minute. And then when I talked to you on the phone, it backed up that whole episode.
You impressed the crap out of him, Erica.
So let's start. I saw the question on the episode, but we decided that we should ask it too.
But I want to ask one question first before you dive in, so I don't, because I'll throw him off otherwise.
All right.
Where did you get the name Atlas? Unique, and I like it.
Yeah. So he didn't get named till he was 2 days old. I didn't even have the name Atlas planned. I will say his name was going to be Trip. Like, I wouldn't know why I was set on that name. And then he was born, and I told his dad, I don't like that name. I don't know what to do. I don't like the name. I don't know what to name him. And so we kind of looked through, we were looking online at every baby name thing we could think of. They're very much pressuring us to sign the birth certificate, and
they want that.
He didn't have a name, and so he was just no name for a day. But we see his middle name is Theodore. I came on that first, Theodore. I think that would be a good middle name, and we looked at a lot of mythological names. His dad has a daughter named Athena, so we were also kind of looking at those types of names, and I just said Atlas Theodore Baldwin. I was like, that sounds like a really important name. It sounds awesome. We got to write it down. So that's just kind of how it came about. So
he better be rich and famous with that name for sure. Like, that's kind of like built in.
Yeah, it sounded really important, and I that just goes well. I'm so glad I didn't name him Trip.
Atlas, it's just so unique, and it suits him. I mean, when I saw him, it was just like it was perfect.
Yeah, and working in preschool, I hear a lot of names, so I try to think of something that's different and I haven't heard of, so, and not too difficult to pronounce or something.
Well, there's another thing. Let's talk about that if you don't mind. Your profession is you're a
preschool teacher.
For how long now?
I've been at my school for 10 years, and I have worked at a few other schools for about 2 years before that. So
so again, this is someone who isn't. We talked again. Eric and I talked on the phone, and we're going to get into a lot of the people that she's come into contact with and people that have reached out to her. But there are a lot of people who are out there in this field and who have a lot of claims, and you can tell something may be a little hooky. But I was waiting for that with Erica, and I didn't get that. And then when I found out what you did for a living, I was like, holy crap.
So child behavior
she's
very
actually,
well.
Very well. I'm very interested in child behavior. That's like just my passion, is working with children and listening to them. And it's just what I do and what I'm good at. Usually the most misbehave or challenging behaviors is what I like to work with, because I think kids just need to be listened to. And
you and I would have gotten along great then when I was a kid. We would have been best friends. So let's. I saw the question in the episode. We talked about whether or not we were going to ask it again because it was asked in the episode. But I figured maybe some people here didn't watch the episode. Mm-hmm. We're always curious about the before and after type of thing. And this was again asked to you from the doctor. Prior to everything that you went through, what was your idea of the afterlife? What happens next? What did you think? What were your beliefs?
So I was brought up in a very religious household. My grandfather's, he just passed, was a minister. My uncle, a minister, very church twice a week my whole life. But I've also always have had an open mind. I remember if I could read a book about Buddhism, I would, or different religion. I was just curious, not that I was questioning it, but, also in the Christian faith, you don't question it, like a lot of, you don't question that you brought up, you don't do that. But I've always had that open mind, always been an X-Files fan and types of things like that. And
we were just talking about that with your shirt. Her shirt is pretty funny.
And so I've always just been like, well, who says that? That's how I've always been. Well, who says that? I remember even getting in trouble. Like, I remember I was reading a book about Buddhism and my mom was like, why are you reading that? You don't need to, read that. I'm like,
you've already got the true word.
Like, I don't want to be a blinded sheep. You know what I mean? It's not that if you believe in God that you are a sheep, but I think when you refuse to see something, well, I was not brought up that way, so I can't look, that's a lot of people. That's basically, I think, being ignorant, like I refuse to look at that or believe in something, even if it's right in front of you, and so I've always just been a person, well, if something happens to me, I will believe it, I guess, or if I see it from my own eyes,
But that kind of, again, I don't want to jump ahead, but that's going to stick in my head for a question I'm going to ask kind of later on. If you watch the episode, and you should, around the age of a year and a half, Atlas starts having what they describe as night terrors.
Yeah, I think it's night terrors. That's what
what was he doing? What exactly was going on?
He would for the first year, he never slept through the night. Even past a year old, he was not. He was always waking up. But yeah, near a year and a half, it was more like not waking up as a baby, but waking up like screaming, just screaming. And I would go in his room, and sometimes his eyes would just be open. His eyes were open, and he would just be like holding his breath, and like he seemed like he was in severe pain. Like he was screaming, like, help me, and screaming, like, and he was like grabbing at his legs, and like you could talk to him, but it's like he cannot hear you. And I started after a year into it, I kind of got better at getting him out of it, like, because sometimes I could go into half an hour, of screaming at 2:00 in the morning, waking everybody up in the house, and I had to start being like, Atlas, you're at home, you're with mommy, and you're okay. And he'd be like, oh, okay. And it would start calming him, and he would kind of calm down. I had to start like speaking to him over and over and over, and just keep repeating it until he would calm down, because it's like he couldn't even hear me,
See, here's the eyes thing open. About that, again, stick a pin in that for you guys that are watching. This is called foreshadowing, because this really is relevant.
I never thought of it till later, after everything happened, and people asked me, well, did he have that? I'm like, oh my, the night, like it all kind of came together.
Very relevant as we go. I don't want to get into, you'll see the tie-in, because that's an important part of this whole entire experience. But how terrorizing for
you as a mom? I mean, I had 2 girls, so again, we're very protective of our children, and we can't solve the issue or help our children in their suffering like that. I mean, that had to be very exhausting for you.
Very exhausting, because it was sometimes 4 nights a week,
Oh,
Psychologically,
I
emotionally,
I was
mentally.
tired, and what do I don't know how to help you. Like,
right.
I would just sit there on his bedroom floor. So I know his dad, we would just sit there sometimes on the floor, just trying to get him to get out of it.
Oh my
Takes so
God.
long for him to come to. Like he would come back, and then he'd be like, oh, okay, you know. But it was like he was sometimes his eyes were fully open, and he would a lot of times cry that his legs were hurting. Get off of me. But mostly he wasn't always talking, but sometimes he had cried, get off me. My legs hurt, you know, something's hurting me. But how he cried, it sounded like he was in like severe pain.
Oh my
And
God.
I mean, I told his pediatricians that like he's screaming and having night terrors, and you know, and they're like, well, I think at
Overrun.
first, yeah, the first when he was younger, it was kind of like, well, he's just like little and waking up. But then,
Right.
I mean, they referred me to a child psychologist, but it didn't really pan out too much.
And this went on for years, right? I mean, this went on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He kind of slowed down around 3-ish, 4. Like it was still be once in a while, but it was not like maybe once a week, maybe every 2 weeks. Like it was definitely had died down. After like 1.5, 2.5, that was where it was pretty much really.
But no answers in that whole time frame.
The therapist, I remember we went to, I think 5 sessions. I ended up just not going back because they kind of were just like giving me, helping him how to go to sleep. And I'm like, well, I know how to put him to sleep. And I was trying to explain that. And they were just like, I don't know. Like
it's the old, make sure the environment, make sure there's no stimulus before blah, 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 blah.
Like I was saying in our phone call, I almost felt like I felt terrible saying this about the doctor, but she was very young, like younger than I was. And I felt like she was Googling it because I felt like everything she did was like,
she's like, what is he experiencing again?
I'll be right back.
Okay.
She said, what color? There's playing here. Want to play Play-Doh? And one time he just played Play-Doh. What color does blue make you feel like? And he was like, happy. No, it's sad. And I'm like, what is that helping? Like,
she's like,
I was like, what are you doing? So after like 5 times, I was tired of taking him there. I'm like, I don't think this is helping. I'm trying to figure out why he's having night terrors.
Right.
And also when he was around 2 and stuff, he was really afraid a lot.
Right.
Like he had chewed his nails. He was chewing his nails a lot. And he was always afraid of shadows, or saying that there's shadows, and he was scared of shadows. And it was just really weird. I was afraid he was like, seemed like he had anxiety, you know, and I was just worried for him because I'm like, he's too little to be so afraid and scared all the time.
Who knows a 2-year-old that chews their nails?
Well,
that's what,
anxiety.
like I said, like I've been around kids. I've never seen a kid. He had like his nails were chewed down, the cuticles were all tore up. He'd just be chewing his nails a lot. And so.
Oh my God.
I know. So I mean, I thought something scares him, and he's very scared of like shadows on the walls and stuff.
So let's fast forward again. If you watch this episode, this segment is only, I think, like 10 minutes. We were talking about this before. There's the part that makes you go, holy crap, is she is actually driving somewhere. I don't know where exactly they were going.
Just driving home. Yeah.
Just driving home. Atlas is in the back seat. They described the scene as kind of being quiet, and he's kind of looking out the window, and he's just kind of dazing, you know. And what happened? You explain what happened during that car ride.
So we were just driving down the highway, and he was looking out the window, and just it was dead silent in the car, and he just said, I miss going to the park with my mom. That was the sentence, I think, that starts everything. It's like the sentence, you know. And I just said, your mom? Who's your mom? Like, you mean me? Like, what are you talking about? Well, when I used to go to the park with my mom with the very pretty hair. And I said, do I not have pretty hair? Like, I was just kind of, I just think he's being very silly. So, you know, because he's like, no, the mom with the pretty hair. And I'm like, so I was like, so I'm like, you have another mom? What are you talking about? Like, I said, I'm your mom. And he said, well, my other mom took me to the playground. She had really pretty hair. And it was when I had brown skin.
Oh my God.
I think I was just like,
Yeah,
And you're trying to figure this out while you're
I
driving.
mean,
Like, what's
there
going
was moments
on?
where I just kind of like, what is he saying? And
Yeah.
so I just kept asking kind of open-ended questions. So you had brown skin and you had another mom, you know, and they took you to the park, you know, when was that? You know, well, when I was a baby, you know, my mom with the very pretty hair and brown skin, she took me to the park and pushed me on a swing, and I miss her. It so I'm like, okay. And then he said, and at first it was a little confusing. He said, Jalen Robinson. And I'm like, Jalen Robinson. So I had to think of like every kid at my school, like, because he went to the preschool that I worked at the
Okay.
time.
Okay.
I thought of every single kid, like, who is he talking about at school? And I said, so your name was Jalen Robinson, and you had brown skin, and you had a different mom took you to the park. He said, yeah, but I think hers is not Jalen Robinson. Hers Washington.
Oh my
But
God.
my dad is a Robinson, and his mom is a Robinson.
Could you imagine?
No,
That's
I
what he
can't.
said. And so I think the whole ride it was just dead silent, and I'm just thinking of like 100 things. Like,
Where did that come from?
I think it like the first few days, it was very surreal because I'm like, do I even want to repeat that to anybody? Like, is that weird that my kid said that? But I mean, I immediately he went and played. I came in the living room and I got on my phone and I Googled it, you know. And so then I talked to him some more before I told him anything. And I said, well, what happened to Jalen Robinson? How are you Atlas? He said, well, I think somebody killed me.
Oh
And
my God.
I don't know if it was my mom, but somebody killed me. And
Oh
I
my.
was kicking my legs and I was crying and I could see a TV. And then I was kicking inside of your tummy and I was Atlas.
Holy sugar. Now you
So I was
live in
like,
Indiana. We got to point that out too.
yes, Indiana, there in Brooklyn, New York. And there's many years past from his death and Atlas's birth.
So having I don't know what I would do. First of all, if the first part of that would have freaked me out, and then the other part with I don't know if my mommy did it. Like what how did you respond to that?
So I I Googled Jalen Robinson death, Washington. Like, I mean, I had to just put that in there in Google and kind of like murder. You know, I kind of just seen if is that going to show up anything. And what hit me was when I first saw the obituary, and when I seen the mom last name Washington, I think that's where I was like, I think I just searched Jalen Robinson. So when I seen the Washington, I was like, oh my gosh, like that name, that's the last name in this obituary as the mom. That's what he said.
Where would a child at that age get that kind of information?
From New York.
And I think that was a part where I had goosebumps. And so I heard and I messaged his dad. You know, I told him about what's happening. I sent him the
describe
he was
what
like,
happened to the real Jalen Robinson.
So it said that the real Jalen Robinson was murdered by his babysitter, mom's close friend. I think it said, looking into news reports, that she was babysitting him and he had like an ear infection and he was crying a lot. And the babysitter's daughter testified that, you know, as a witness, that she, I think, taped his mouth shut and it suffocated him, and that she had, I think, stabbed his legs with scissors.
Oh no!
Are you kidding
And then
me?
you just said Atlas would wake up crying at 1.5 with his legs hurting. Get
Yes.
off me!
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So, yes, I know. Like that, it took me a while to get this realization later. So, I'm looking at it.
I want to go back real quick again to that beginning point.
There's so much to take in.
Now knowing what you know, what she's talking about, what Atlas was saying, who he was, and what happened to that boy, those quote unquote night terrors, those things. We talked about this, Erica and I.
Mhm.
I mean, if you really want to get out there and get into theory, it could have been either the memories of the tragedy in the past life, or two souls living in one body, kind of living,
Coexisting.
yeah, dual existence. One, the last memory was tragic, horrific, painful.
Mhm.
When we went back and revisited that, and you talked about, and then I went, oh my God,
Yeah, it hits
that
you
poor
even harder.
kid, that poor 1.5-year-old was dealing with this. Who could imagine?
But what makes you think too is that when Atlas is sleeping, that's probably where the other one is able to come,
right.
and make Atlas feel all of this stuff.
Yes, it's really hard. Like I said, I would have to say Atlas. Atlas. I've like, you are at home. You're at my house. And he would kind of like calm down and settle down. You're at home. Like you're in your bedroom. And no one's hurting you. I'd have to say those words to him to get him to kind of like.
So here's a new thing. We always talk about being possessed by spirits, being possessed by demons, but possessed by a soul.
That's not really what reincarnation is.
But I mean, it's almost like another soul is possessed in.
It's a dual experience. They're both. Well, we'll get into.
Nobody. I feel like nobody knows the answers.
No, there are no answers. But that's
why this would happen. I don't know why it would happen. I don't know. Like it's so weird. Was he always there? I mean, I did ask Atlas, how come he's never talked about Jalen before? He said, oh, I've always known about Jalen, but I forgot for a little bit, but then I remembered him again. So that's
so you're Googling, you're finding out all this information.
So I I tell him to come back in here, get in the living room. So I kind of sat him next to me, and the obituary has that picture, and he sat down. He said, oh my goodness, you found my baby picture of me when I was a baby.
Oh my.
And I knew before you even said anything.
I said, this is you as a baby? Because I took I said, I thought this is you as a baby. And I have pictures in my living room. I thought that's you. Well, that was me, but that was the old me. That is when I was brown. So, I mean, yes, he uses those terms. Right. He just says I was brown. Right. So he's like, that's when I was brown, That's when somebody killed me. And he didn't know who killed him. He said, I think it could have been my mom. So I said, did you know that it wasn't Jalen's mom that killed him? It was a babysitter. And he seemed very relieved. He said, oh, I loved my mom. I'm glad. And I even wonder if this whole thing needed to happen just so Jalen could know that it wasn't his mom. Because he said, and being a 19-month-old baby and being with a female family friend, who knows what, and who knows what got confused.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And also
children confuse things sometimes.
I also have to know of what a 19-month-old can remember. Because a 19-month-old, what is a 19-month-old baby brain? Because he could say he had siblings, sisters, brothers. He couldn't recall names, of them. So, things like that. So you have to only think of what can a 19-month-old remember.
So you have this. God, again, I'm trying to put myself in this position. What would I do? You have this information. Did you tell family members, friends, anything? What was going on?
Right. So the first person I told was his dad. Like I said, I kind of was screenshotting things and telling him everything he's saying, and he's always been. He was like, "Well, Atlas has always been very an intuitive child," and he kind of, was like, "Well, this is interesting,"
He accepted it.
And then I think I told my mom, who is a lot more open-minded, except for when I read a Buddhist book as a child. She's come a long way in life with her own things, and she has been pretty much, I think, my number one fan. She's just like, oh my gosh, and freaking out, and I kind of put a few days later, I think I put it a little post on my Facebook page, hey guys, you know what Atlas said, this and this and that, what do you guys think about that? Do you guys think that's weird? And it kind of got a bunch of comments, and then people trying to search the parents of the child and looking up every news article they could. And they were like, oh, everyone's kind of freaking out, oh my gosh, what are we I think it was.
But that's the other side of this. And we talked about this as well. Mm-hmm. Picture now you being a mother, a parent, us being parents. If word got back to you that the situation was reversed and their child was talking about your child. You know, you got to look at both sides of this. Like, how would I react to somebody saying to me, my son who passed or was killed is now communicating through somebody else's child? So, you know, you and I talked about that. They didn't really want to be involved. Did you reach out to them at all before the show, or was it after?
It
Before.
took me a little bit, before the show. It took me a little bit. I tried to tell anyone who was knowing about the situation, my own mom, don't you dare message them. Like, because it's a sensitive subject.
Right.
Don't say anything. I will say something, maybe I will say something. I had to think about it.
I would too.
Because at the same time, if my child passed and someone tried to say, oh, my kid used to be your kid,
I'd tell them where to go.
You don't want that to. If that is an ounce to be false, it would be devastating.
Oh, you better believe it. And I'd want to kill the person who was trying to do that to me.
So I'm not trying to sit here and be like, guess what? We're all fans and we're all, it's not for attention. But I do want to let you know, because again, I would also want to know if my child died and 10 years later, someone from across the country was randomly talked about him.
Me too. I would want to know.
Could they be weird parents setting it up? But it wasn't. Like, I can, any naysayer, I can never convince anyone.
No, never.
If they want to. I mean, I'm truthful. I don't even like a lot of attention. I don't want to be famous. So it is what it is. I messaged the mom. And I don't think she gets on Facebook that much. So she didn't really, it never was read. Okay. And so I then messaged the dad, which me and him talked first.
Okay.
About it. And I can't even remember what the messages said at first.
Right.
I just said, hi, I do not want to upset you in any way. I know you had a son that passed, but my son, he was about a week before his 5. I think, 4. Yeah. My son who's 4, out of the blue, started speaking of your son. And brought up your name and, Jalen's mom's name, and talking about it. And when he saw your photo, because I showed, I played a little trivia with Atlas that next day with the Facebook photo of Jalen's dad, and I think I looked up African American men and just took a bunch of pictures and scrambled up, and he immediately said, "There's my dad." So I let him know this, and he at first was kind of like, "Oh, right." He said, "I actually believe in reincarnation, and I do believe this could be so." So I think we kind of talked at first, but then I said, "I will never push you to do anything. Right. Ball is always in your court. I'm not doing this to rile you up or get anything from you."
Right.
So we did talk some, and then it kind of like, I mean, not trying to talk ill about them. We kind of just lost touch. Like they didn't want to keep communicating with me, and I didn't push it.
So people are asking, what is the time frame between when Jalen lost his life and when Atlas started talking about him? Do you have any idea?
So I hate to mess this up, but I think he passed in 2005.
Okay.
You'd have to check that. I know it's bad that I don't remember that.
Right.
And then Atlas was born in 2014.
So
there's time.
There's a gap.
And then he was 4, 2018.
Right.
2019 when he started talking about it, so
10 years
so I mean
plus.
There's a lot of time there.
So how did the TV show become involved, and how did that whole thing, I mean, did you think about getting Atlas again in therapy again before?
No, because I think they would probably, they'd probably think I was just crazy,
Yeah, I would think so too, to be honest with you. If you got the wrong therapist, they may prescribe them a bunch of crap.
And it seemed like
our family doctor, his pediatrician is a fan and has watched the documentary and thinks it's cool.
Wow.
So I mean.
So what happened with the TV show? How did that come to be?
So I think like a week or two has passed. I mean, I think I'd already messaged the parents. We already, some people on Facebook knew, my mom knew. And I just thought about like, what do you do? Like, what do I do? Like, who do I tell this to? Like, without seeming like a crazy person. I wanted it to be legit because I felt like it was so legit. I need someone to know. So I kind of just like past lives, looking at stuff. And I think I found Dr. Jim Tucker, which he has several YouTube videos, books, things like that. I looked him up like to see, is this a real doctor? Like, does he have a degree? Like, I mean, I want it to be legitimized, like by an actual professional person.
Yeah.
And I just saw like University of Virginia, and I think there was somewhere where you could submit a past life thing. Like there's a whole thing about how they've been documenting them for years. Like he took over for somebody else who spent his life documenting them, I think around the world. Like that's like their life thing is to do this. So I just kind of like, I just wrote what I had done. Like I wrote out everything that happened. And I think the next day someone emailed me, asked me for my phone number or something. And then Jim Tucker emailed me, like he kind of like got that from the school. And I mean, I think it was the next day or two, and we talked on the phone. And he was like, well, I'm getting a plane ticket and coming out there. And I'm like, to see him. And I'm just like, okay, you sure? Like, I just live in little southern Indiana. It's nothing special here. So I'm like, you want to come here to see me? Like, I'm like, oh, Atlas, you better be legit.
It would be funny if he made up a whole other name and a whole other story.
Start talking some mouth, boy. Like, you put me in it now.
Locking mom up.
You can't predict your 4
or 5-year-olds. Kids are,
did you know
I'm
that
like,
it was going to be filmed and documented, and you had to know if you signed all the paperwork.
Well, he was actually just going to come out just himself, like, because I think he does not normally have a film crew. He normally just goes out and does these things without film crews.
Right.
And so then it got like he's supposed to come out within the next month, and then it got postponed. And then he called me again or wrote me and said, "Hey, this documentary is needing like another story." And asked him about some things. I don't know how it led up, and he was telling about me, and they said, hold your trip, we're going to come with you. So they had their schedule. So he's like, is it okay if this Netflix documentary comes with you? And I was just like,
what did I get into?
Yes.
It went from something that big to now it's
yes. And little backstory, I had just moved singly with 4 kids. I was not married, or I was single at the time. And I just got a house that was like a fixer-upper type of house, but it's like it was a good house, needs a lot of work. So I had only been there for a few months, and I thought I better at least get part of this house looking good. That's all I could think about.
And let's also talk about the fact that you also, as a mother, and you have a lot of compassion and caring for your children. It's very obvious in the conversations we've had. That now you're spotlighting your son who's young and impressionable. I mean, that has to be a concern in the back of your head.
Yeah, I mean, family, how they're going to look at it.
How does this affect him?
Friends, school, your job, whole
Mm-hmm.
shebang. You had to have been.
Yep.
Overwhelming.
It was overwhelming, especially when the day the documentary aired. Like those next few weeks was pretty like. I think I couldn't even talk after the first week. We'll go back to.
Yeah,
we were jumping ahead, but yeah.
Let's talk about the actual documentary itself, and when Dr. Tucker is there. From what you see, that we see as the viewers, Dr. Tucker is talking to you and Atlas together. He does a test like you did, where he showed multiple pictures of different houses, different playgrounds, but there was the actual house that Jalen lived in, the actual playground near where he would have lived, people, women, men, to test the mother and the father. And he mentions 5 pictures, but they only discuss 4. But he hit on, according to Dr. Tucker, I mean, and you see it in the episode, there's no delay. He's like, bam, 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 bam. bam.
Uh-huh.
Like he looks and bam, right? There wasn't any, oh, I think.
And his
it
face
was,
lit up.
Bam.
When he saw what he recognized, he just lit. He glowed.
Were you even surprised by all of, because you look surprised on the episode, like you were like, whoa, he really.
Because I have only did the test myself with the mom and dad. I had never even thought to look up. I never even knew the address where he had lived, but I guess that you could look it up. I never even thought to look it up where he was killed, all that stuff. I never looked into it.
Right.
So those were the first times I ever saw those photos laying there. And so when he picked him, I don't know what he was even picking. Is he picking right or wrong? I don't know. And so he picked him and they were like, mark it. And I was just like, I think I had goosebumps. I'm like, all 5. I'm like, you know this building? Like,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it was 5 photos, mom, dad, playground, the home he lived in, the home he was murdered in. Because he was at the babysitter's. He was at a different home.
And again, for the viewers out there, Atlas and Erica live in Indiana. The murders happened in New York.
Yeah.
Yes. In Brooklyn.
Years earlier.
We don't have houses like that around here. I'll just tell you. We don't have brownstones or brick row homes. We don't have anything like that. We have shotgun houses. So that's what we call them here. If you don't know what they are, they're like tall, pointy.
So how many days was Dr. Tucker actually there?
1 day.
Get out of here.
It took, they came that morning. They're there the entire day. That 10-minute video, they interviewed me for 6 hours.
Oh yeah, they do.
They were here for some time. The whole thing. I talked and answered questions. I thought I couldn't talk anymore. So
Isn't it funny though, from a TV perspective, that you can do all that and you're like 10 minutes and you're like, wow, that was 8 hours worth for 10 minutes.
I know. And the fact that so that I think it was in August we did that. I know I'm bad at times.
So were you nervous? Well, I don't want to jump too far. I want to ask a question too, real quick. After they leave, this is again my own curiosity. With all of that going on and all the pictures and all the talking about it, how was Atlas right after when everybody left? Was he continuing to talk about, or did it just that was cool?
No, he continued, and something that I think we learn even working with small children is you should never interrogate children. Like, it's a big thing, and that's why I never interrogated him in the first place, because I think working with children, even not saying for any case, but even like for abuse or anything, you don't interrogate children. And I've been trained on that, because then they're going to force an answer out that's untrue.
Yep.
And so I've never wanted to do that, because I don't want to give false information, only because I kind of sometimes, like, his siblings would ask him questions, and so he would just make up answers because it was becoming constant. Well, when Jalen would you do this? When you're Jalen would you do that? And so he would make up things he did when he was actually Atlas as a child. So I was like, stop asking him that, because you're getting him confused.
So weird.
I know. So I feel like we're the only family that can very nonchalantly. Well, when you were Atlas or Jalen, on your old wife or your old mom, I feel like he's like, well, my old mom. I feel like no other family, that's a normal thing to say.
But afterwards, was he, like I said, was he quiet? Did he just continue to talk about that, or
well, I would say that day, but yeah, he would randomly speak of it, but not always.
Did it bring anything else up that he didn't talk about at all, that we didn't see?
So there's a few things that he's brought up that I guess wasn't mentioned in the documentary. Right. I can't remember because I only watched it one time. Didn't want to look at myself anymore. But I talked a lot of shows, so I can't remember what I say half the time. About small things. He says, well, I remember my dad put me on his shoulders. No, those are things I wish I could confirm. I don't know. Walked around outside on his shoulders.
Right.
He says he remembers his dad giving him a bottle. He remembers taking a bath. He remembers a small white dog. That's one he always says that he remembers a small white dog. that, I mean, it was real and not a stuffed animal, and we've never had a small white dog. And which was confirmed later, like way after the documentary came out. Someone who was close to the family messaged me, and I think they heard me say it on something, and she wanted me to know she used to babysit Jalen a lot, and they had a small white dog. They wanted to tell me.
Wow.
So I was like, so it, like, even time later, that got to be something I got to confirm. You know.
How old was Jalen when it happened? When he lost his life?
He was 19 months old.
Wow.
You know,
so how many memories, honestly, could you have?
Right, because so I think that's why he can't confirm. I remember a bottle. I remember a bath.
Yeah,
I remember
it's
swing
just
at the park.
flashes. Just
he remembers one time his dad put him on his shoulders. So it's not, I think, a lot, because like I said, well, because I said, did you have brothers and sisters? You know, well, I had sisters and brothers, and I don't know their names. He didn't know their names.
19 months old. I mean,
and I'm like, at 19 months
comprehension
old,
level.
You don't know your sister's name, Sissy and Bubby and whatever. You know, kind of just. So I mean, I was like, okay, and Jalen did have sisters and brothers. So I mean,
wow.
Yeah, I think at that age we're just worried about the major needs. You know, the eating, the sleeping, and the changing.
So the show airs. Are you like, you know, when you found out it was on Netflix, where you're like, okay, what's going to happen now? You know, again, I would be like coming out in the morning after I knew that was posted on Netflix and wonder, okay, is my family going to call me? Is my job going to look at me like I'm a nut job? Are the kids in school going to pick on Atlas? I mean, all this would have been, you know?
So my work pretty much knew. Okay. Because, I mean, Netflix was here, but when they came to my house, I was not allowed to post about it or post that I was going to be on Netflix. They said they could not. So I mean, close people, I was like, I'm going to be on Netflix. FYI. I couldn't post it on social media.
Yeah.
And like, I took pictures of the film crew here at my house, couldn't post them until after the documentary aired. Like, I couldn't post that. You know, like, I was posting pictures, taking pictures of like the film crew playing around with Atlas and stuff. But like, and then we actually go back a little bit to fill the what is it, the reenactment scenes.
Right.
I went to New York.
Oh, cool.
In Long Island, around over there. And
now you just went with Atlas.
Just me and Atlas. His
Atlas
first
never kind of even inquired about going anywhere near that area.
So we went there, and you know, from someone who lives in Indiana, New York is just big giant New York City. Yeah, so sure I didn't realize that being in the very tip of Long Island is very far away from New York City.
Sure is.
And I had to tell a lot of people that, because like, did you see the Statue of Liberty? You see that? I'm like, no, guys, it's
not
very
around the
far
corner.
Okay.
It's not close. We just think when we watch Sex and the City and stuff like that they're just walking straight back and forth to these Brooklyn and Long Island. You know, I had to look at a map and realize they're not close together. So we did not go to that area. So the part of New York we were in did not look city. Okay. It was a very small town. We had to take a ferry to where we went to.
Did you get produced house? I'm always curious about, because I know how people are, and you and I talked about this a little bit too. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, were there a lot of people like trying to visit your home or emailing you and messaging you that you didn't know, that were kind of like, I've been through this too, or my kid's been through this too, or, you know, they just wanted to get to know you or Atlas? I mean, did you get a lot of those people coming out of the woodwork? Like me?
Yeah. You're way later. You're late to the game.
She can handle it.
Which actually probably got reason why I got a response. Like, you got a response out of me.
I was after.
It was right then. I think I had 100 friend requests the day on Facebook.
Oh my God.
And my phone was just all day long. All day long. I was at work. Every single parent, you know, in my classroom was like, oh my gosh, you're okay. Like,
but you were saying that people did reach out to you claiming to be reincarnated themselves, and they were kind of out there. I can imagine you would draw. That's what happens.
And so they're like, well, my kid said this and my kid said that. And,
Yeah.
you know, I kind of looked at like a reincarnation Facebook group and,
Yeah.
you know, just go in there and see what they're doing. And, you know, right when the documentary came out, I kind of advertised it in there too, just because. And no, I don't get any kind of money. I was just advertising it to people who are interested. So everyone knows I did not get paid for this. A lot of people think that's, oh, you're getting paid. That's why you on Netflix.
People
made
think
it
that about
free.
a lot of things.
I'm like, the reincarnation came first, then Netflix. You know, it wasn't like I wanted to be on the show. I never heard of the show. And so.
But let's get back to, I know people are more curious about Atlas and where this story goes. So how long was Atlas still kind of actively talking about Jalen? And did it ever just stop one day, or did it just kind of trickle off to where he mentioned it every now and then just stop?
Sorry, cats.
Hey, he's got fans too.
I'm like, get out of here. So he kind of would talk about it. And then I think, let's see, around 6 years old, I think there was a while I realized, you know what? We haven't talked about that for a while. I think it was like after the documentary aired. Yes, a lot of, and you know, kids don't really watch it, so he didn't really have any hassle. I think he was in kindergarten or something.
Good.
No one knew about it. I always wondered if teachers did, and like, but no one ever said anything to me, so I don't know. Like a really long time had passed, and what Jim Tucker said and what I was reading about it is they usually always forget. Like they forget. Like as they get older, he's not going to remember. And so I will randomly, every so often, do you remember Jalen? Yeah. I'm like, do you remember talking about Jalen, or do you remember being Jalen? Because you know, he can remember the stories we talked about. He knows he was on Netflix. So do you remember the whole situation? Do you remember Jalen being Jalen? Do you remember his thoughts? And he says yes, and he says he still does. So, but there's never been any new information. He says so, but you know, I don't know if that's true. But there's never been like
sense, though, like what
new regulations. There has not been any more like that. Kind of trickled off. I stopped asking him. I kind of let him say things. Like I just asked him open-ended questions, but I never pushed him.
But I think you hit it on the head. We're talking about a 19-year-old little boy. So how much could there be?
Yeah, but we talked about this too, Erica. I mean, there may, again, in theory, if two souls could coexist within a body, a child especially, you would think eventually the one soul that is the new soul that is meant to continue on would kind of, for lack of a better word, overtake and become the dominant soul, and the other soul would just kind of fade into whatever's supposed to happen when you do pass. Or maybe that's what I would get from.
Or gets absorbed.
Or there is some kind of closure, like you said, like you were saying about finding out about the babysitter. Maybe that was the trigger to
like, did he need
and move on?
Did he need the closure? You know, of knowing that it was not his mom. You know, it was. I feel like he was very relieved, and he really loved. I think his mother, Jalen, loved his mom, because when he would see the photos of his mom, he would be very, like, happy but sad. And he said many times, I really want you to take me to her. I really want to see her. I miss her very much. He really wanted to see her. So, and I was hoping he would be able to see her while he still was younger and remembered. But, you know.
Situation wasn't conducive to that. Oh,
there he is.
There's the handsome young
man. All your
man.
fans are watching. Atlas.
See? You have fans?
How you doing?
Everyone out there, this is Atlas.
He's got glasses now, huh?
How old are you now? You're 8?
8.
Ah, those are cool glasses.
Thank you.
What grade are you in?
2nd grade.
2nd. You like it?
Yes.
I like the hair. We have like hair, Atlas. See? I'm a lot older than you, but the hair's good. What do you like to do for fun?
Yes, play games.
Video games?
You gotta say yes.
Yes.
What else is there, right?
I know he's like,
Video
I'm just talking to
games.
my fans. You know, this is what we do.
There's a lot of people on here watching you, Atlas.
Did you like being on TV?
Yes.
Do you ever go back and watch it?
Only like few times.
Yeah.
A
Do
few
your,
times.
do your friends know that you've been on TV?
Only one.
Yeah, better off that
you
way.
tell you tell your teachers at school.
No.
I
No.
thought you said your teacher told you,
Only one knew.
your music teacher.
Hmm.
He told me his music teacher
Or
said,
she-
I see you on
watch
TV.
it. Yeah.
And when we went to the doctor, all the nurses were really excited for you to come that day because they had all watched it.
What about
Like,
Dr. Tucker? Did you like him?
Yes.
He seemed like a nice guy, right?
Yes.
do you remember what we're talking about?
Yes.
What are we talking about?
Jalen.
And do you remember Jalen?
Yes.
You remember doing all this stuff for the documentary?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not going to keep telling you the story over and over again. I do appreciate you being here, though. A lot of people wanted to see you because they watched the show.
You are an impressive young man.
Mm-hmm.
Very impressive.
You like those Marvel movies too? You watch those Marvel movies?
Yes.
Marvel, yeah.
Did you see Doctor Strange yet?
Yes.
No, we haven't watched the new movie that came out.
Oh.
There's a new one. You haven't seen that.
It's a good one. You got to go see it.
Your big brother saw it. But,
Well, thanks for joining us, Atlas. I appreciate it. I don't want
Right.
to keep you and bore you with all these old people.
all right, go on. We're going to keep talking. They say they want to see you.
I mean, it seems like he's doing okay. I mean,
Oh yeah, he's
well,
good, and
just
he
a young
doesn't
man.
have the night terrors like that stopped as soon as the whole thing with Jalen came out. Like no more night terrors. Like I think it was over. Like is able to. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like he finally was able to talk about it. It was gone.
yeah, that's why I didn't want to. I felt weird even talking to him. He looked a little uncomfortable and
No, he's fine.
Yeah.
He
He's like, "Oh,
he's
this
got me
again?"
for a mom. He
Yeah.
knows.
I
He
felt
knows.
weird.
Oh, I don't want to offend people listening, but we have a lot of jokes. We are
Okay.
I think we're very I don't know, we're a pretty funny
Modern.
family, and shoot. We don't get offended by much over here. We
you
always
said, you said off at the gate earlier, you know, that when we were privately talking about the dark humor. And
Well,
we
Yeah.
live on the dark
oh
humor.
yeah, I'm like, hey, my kid was black in his past life. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he can do this. Like I kind of joke around, like, who else can say that? Okay, so you know, I kind of we make jokes about things.
We
Stuff
are.
like
Yes,
that.
she said we're super
know.
sarcastic here too.
Where I'm like,
Here's the
hey,
thing.
my kid, we're Netflix famous in this town, you know, because
Who else can say that in Indiana? You know,
right in my
somewhere
town, like,
David
I'm
Letterman
sorry,
is
have you
somewhere
been
in
on
Indiana.
Netflix?
I know that
Okay,
much.
be quiet.
But we were talking before too, and again, I don't want to dive too far down the rabbit hole, but we were talking about this before, and we're not going to go too deep into too many things. But
Yeah, we can go for hours.
when we were having our conversation on the phone, it is so strange to me how some people's lives have weird, strange, some tragic, some mind blowing. When we were talking, you mentioned your fiance, was it boyfriend?
It's a fiance. Mhm.
Fiance that he had passed when
Mhm.
you were how old?
22.
22.
years old. Mhm.
And I'm sure that was a sudden thing at 22 years old.
I was 22. He had just turned 25.
Right.
Actually, his birthday was May 2nd, and he died on May 19th. So, which is coming up.
Oh my God. So,
Mhm.
and then you lost your father
When I was 9, a
when
small
you were
child.
9. I mean, so that's a lot of
trauma
and loss and emotional stuff to deal with. And then, you know, you have a son who's got this thing that no one would, I mean, I don't know if I would believe it if somebody told me, unless I was sitting in front of him and I heard it for myself and I did like you did. I Googled everything. And I mean, do you think that in some way, in weird cosmic plan, that all of this stuff was kind of, you're the kind of common denominator within this path? You know what I mean? Do you think that there's a fate, that there's a reason for all of this?
I think how I feel about everything that's happened in my life, I believe there is some meaning to things. Like there is a purpose for things to happen. Um, I feel when my fiance Sean passed away, that was a very meaningful like the whole thing of us being together and him passing was a lot for me to take in at a young age, being young, and I was devastated. But I think it had to happen.
Right.
Like it was a chapter of a book,
Right.
like
Right.
that needed to close, and it was sad. But I think it was a purpose for us to be together, and that he passed. So,
But that's what people are saying here, and I love the way you describe that, because
Chapter.
it puts it in real terms, and I don't know if people like the casualness of it, but it is true.
I know, and I am pretty casual about things, so that's
no, but I mean, I think we all have, and to phrase it, a character arc in our life, and the things that we go through from being young to being the end is part of the journey. And some are easy, and some are born rich and they have a great life. Others have traumatic things they go through and have a son who was reincarnated. But what I'm saying is that those things may have prepared you for what happened with your son and made you be the mother you were, and so open to it and be able to handle that without thinking, oh my God, I've got to.
And that started when you were young, because you questioned things, reading the book about Buddhism. I think if you weren't open-minded, I think everything would have gone in a totally different direction for Atlas.
Yes. So just a few like little conversation I had with Jim Tucker is he says that if you look at reincarnation, a lot of it is in other countries, not here in America. It's other countries where it's already kind of accepted in that religion. And here, he says he believes kids do say things, but they get shut down.
Yes.
They're one, not being listened to, and two, being very religious or wealthy. What will my family and church think about this? You better be quiet. You better stop talking about that. So he said, because there are more cases around the world than here, like, in like India and places like that, I think, where they're more open-minded to that. So when they hear it, they, okay.
I think there's a certain indigenous too, that they believe in that, and that's their religion is based on that, and they acknowledge when somebody comes through that it was a past ancestor and their characteristics, and they identify with it.
So it's unfortunately, someone in church, especially like a very big in the church, what would they say if my kid said something like that? It'd probably embarrass them, because or you're going to make me question things, so you better stop, because
you don't question things that we've been taught.
Nobody wants. You don't question things in religion. Like I said, I was brought up, you don't question the Bible, you don't question things like that, and so, but I'm like, but I've always, I don't know if I'm a rebel or what, but I've always been like, well, I need to learn about everything. Like I always need to know about everything.
And your children will be better off for it.
I don't want to be just like, well, I'm believing this because my mom said, and that's the church I was raised in. But I mean, even as a kid, I was like, well, how come these people, why do there have to be missionaries? How come they don't know about God? If God was, why didn't he go there and tell them? And I used to just think about, well, what do they believe? Why do they believe that? I was just very curious. Like, if this was the right thing, then why doesn't everyone believe that?
Well,
but I don't think it was an accident that Atlas was born.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In the grand scheme of things,
I don't think that's an accident.
See, we even had someone on who, again, you bring up a good point, because if my child is dealing with that, and if I come from a religious background like you're talking about, I bring my child to a therapist, psychiatrist who's from that same background. I'm telling my child suppress. The therapist is telling them suppress. Give it a medication to do whatever. Guess what? How many times has that happened where it may have been something different?
And as many children that you do have any of the other ones experienced this?
No, they really haven't. My kids have, my other three.
Yeah.
It's, But it's so like my pediatrician who does believe it, at first when I told her, I kind of like, sometimes it's kind of like, so there's this
Yeah.
and she's like, what? I can't wait to see that when it comes out. And then so when it came out and he had his next checkup, the whole office, apparently they all made sure everybody watched it the night before. I didn't know.
So cool.
I think that was one of the first like fan things. Oh, Atlas is here. We watched
Wow, that's cool though.
And no, yeah, she loved it. I don't know because you don't know what religion they are. Is she going to be like, ugh, a bunch of weirdos?
Well, people are a lot more
family.
open to it, even the paranormal stuff, what we do. But think again, somebody was saying, think of 20 years, 30 years ago, what would they have said? Would you have had the ability to research anything? It would have been.
Honestly, how would I even Google the family?
That's what I'm saying.
It's like what I've ever known. I don't know it. And I think it has been mostly positive. Thankfully, I was very worried, especially like weeks I knew it was about to air. I think I was getting anxiety about. I hope there's not like pitchforks coming for me. I am some kind of child abuser. I am a crazy mom who's exploiting their child for fame. I don't know. Please don't. I'm always like, no, I'll just be as honest and genuine as possible. I am never going to force it on anybody. You don't want to believe me? That's fine. I'm not going to feed it to you because what am I going to do? I've said what I said. Believe it or not.
You're doing. You're speaking your truth.
I said because I think if you're a liar, you would do that. Yep. You would be pushing it on them. I'm not a liar, so yeah. What he said was crazy. Trust me, I know it's crazy. I understand. Bleeding or dumb. I'm just like,
amazing.
It is.
It's amazing.
It is.
It's amazing. Even sometimes I'll just be at work or doing something. I'm like, my God, I can't believe my kid said that. Like, it just kind of hits me every once in a while. I can't believe I have a kid that said something like that. I can't believe this has happened to my life.
You had better odds of winning the lottery.
This experience happened to me. I think about it and I'm like, it's amazing. Like I can't hardly believe it sometimes.
You're very genuine. You come off very honest. You definitely live your truth. You're not afraid to speak your truth and to go your own path, which isn't easy to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, you talk about it very casually, but I do know that it wasn't easy for you to walk your own path, especially with what you grew up with in the faith of what you were told. Mm-hmm. That's not an easy thing to do, period. Being a rebel, it's easy to say rebel and everybody thinks it cool, but that's tough. That's not easy.
It is because you're weird and I'm just being me and I just don't want to just do everything just because someone's doing that or believes it. And it's not because I'm trying to do it on purpose. I just want to know why. I've always been I mean, right now, if I hear something, anytime I need to look into it. I always need to like dissect things because I want to know the truth to everything.
I'm the same way.
I need to know answers about everything. Even I have preschoolers that will ask me, Miss Erica, they'll ask me a random question. I'm like, I don't know. Let's Google it right now. Let's get to the computer. And I will take them and we'll look it up together.
Awesome. Yeah. I love that.
They put a thought in my head that I haven't thought about. I had a kid that asked me, if you have a nut allergy, are you allergic to coconuts? Is a coconut a fruit or a nut? And I'm like, gosh darn it, I don't know. Let's look into this. Like because I think, and there's 4 years old. They'll ask me questions. I have to. I gotta go look into this right now. I need to. So.
Well, I appreciate you so much for doing this. I'm glad that we got in after the wave of everybody else, and it was really cool of you to agree to do this and take the time to do it, and with the kids being in the other room. And I can't thank you enough. And you were awesome. I mean, you were just as good here as you were on the phone, if not better. I do appreciate it.
And thank you for letting us meet Atlas. That was
no problem. He never came into a video or been on anything before, so I thought, hey, why don't you come? Maybe you can step in and say hi to my fans.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm gonna put a little bug on you. I really think you should do lectures.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I've always been a talker.
I've always been a talker. Perfect speaker.
You would be awesome. You would.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never thought of it, but I know when I did the interview for Netflix and all that, I realized finally my gift of talking a lot is going somewhere because I can talk a lot.
That's where this worked for me too. This is the only place where
I'm a
people
big
actually
talker.
listen to
Everybody
me,
knows
believe it or
that I
not.
talk a lot. So,
All right, Erica. Thank you again. Have a good night and best
all
of
right.
luck with everything, you and your family. I'm sure we'll talk again.
Oh yeah.
Yep. All right.
Take
Thank you
care of
guys.
yourself.
Good night,
Yep.
Erica.
Bye.
She was amazing.
How was that, man? How was
Amazing.
that? Was that everything that we said it was going to be and more? I mean, she really is
The real deal.
Oh man, beyond the real deal. What you see is what you get.
She lives her truth.
Ask a question, honest answer. She doesn't care if you believe it or not. Like you said, her truth. And I give her all the credit in the world for how she raised her children and everything.
Brave, courageous, to put that out there, to tell the world their story, because again, you know, we can say that we accept it now, and it's not everywhere accepts everything. That there are those, and she lives in a small town.
Oh yeah,
she doesn't live like in a big. She lives in a little Indiana town, and, you know, little, like she said, those little houses, what she called it. But and then to allow us to meet Atlas.
Yeah, I was a little nervous questioning him. I didn't want to pull like some
you did it
reporter
perfectly.
thing and
you did
get
it perfectly.
into. I don't want to exploit him. I just didn't want to.
It's a young boy, and it was. We definitely need to talk with her more, because I find her to be a very fascinating person, and I would like to see her do lectures.
So that show on Netflix is called Surviving Evidence. It's episode 6. And it's about 10-15 minutes with her in it, but my jaw dropped when I watched it. Even just watching it again before we went on live, I was just like, you know, here's again my note sheet for a 10-minute, you know, interview. So I find her, and talking to her on the phone, I literally just said to her, let's stop, because it was just like, oh my God, this is going to be a 3-hour interview. And she was amazing. She was amazing.
Well, you can see she's comfortable in her skin.
Yeah.
She's her. There's no anything behind it other than this is what happened. And it's, again, if you get a chance, Surviving Death, you've got to watch it. And I actually enjoyed this even more because she was able to talk more about it and bring up things. And I think that's what I like the best.
So I hope you enjoyed it. And this is the type of thing, like I said, I you know, we can interview people that we know and people in the field and all that, but I look for these fascinating people that have lived real, true, you know, life experiences that we can't explain. You can't. How do you explain that? There is no explanation for what that child was saying.
And then to find out when you said about his legs, like, get off my leg, they hurt my legs, and then the legs got, the 19-month-old boy was stabbed in the legs with scissors.
If you call yourself a skeptic and you see something like that, you've got to open that eye up a little bit to that, because it's unexplainable. There's no reason for that, but it happened. So this is what we do. This is what we teach. This is what we discuss. So I appreciate you guys watching. We're going to be on again. What is today? I don't even know what today. Thursday. We'll be on again probably over. Oh, we'll be on live with Donna tomorrow Friday, from the paper gallery for the auction.
Yep.
So you know, thanks for watching. We'll be on again. We have events next week. John Zaff is coming up. The spirit drawings coming up. Lots of good stuff coming up. The farmhouse investigation, really, really haunted. That's coming up. So lots of stuff to see here, and just to hear us talk to about everything and everything. So thank you all again for your support. Hope you enjoyed it.
Good night. Please be kind.
Soon.
Stay well.
Night, guys.